Samus has got a lot of stuff in her suit. That's not what I mean. There we go. A lot of items and power-ups. Jet boots, 100 missiles, multiple blaster types, layers of armor, and generators! But out of everything, one of the most iconic abilities she has got to be the ability to morph into a ball and roll around. But why not just crawl? Well, because crawling is significantly slower and clunkier, especially with that armor. Being able to turn yourself into a sphere almost instantly is actually quite beneficial. But how does she fit into that? And how does she control where she goes? Well, because if we applied real logic here, then this is how the game would begin. Now, there are other videos on the topic, namely this one, but I'm taking this in a different direction. The Morph Ball is not lame. It's faring amazing! So let's get right down into it, shall we? Samus is 6'3", which is very tall for a woman. Or is it? The whole Metroid series is based in the future, right? And people who lived in the past were significantly shorter than we are today. As technology and quality of life advance, so are our human bodies. Generation after generation, we are getting taller and larger as a species. So by the time we reach Samus's birth year, 2055, perhaps 6'3" will be the new norm. Though, also, Samus was raised by very tall bird people, who trained her to be strong and flexible, so that might have had something to do with it, I don't know. Either way, Samus is 6'3" and weighs 198 pounds. Oh, by the way, that's 1.9 meters and 90 kilograms. When in the suit, Samus is raised about 2 inches, thanks to the top of the helmet and the bottom of the boots, so 6'5". And let's focus primarily on Super Metroid, as it is the most iconic of the Metroids and has the smallest morph ball. Samus's sprite is 48 pixels tall, so 6'5" divided by 48 tells us that each pixel is 1.6 inches. When in Morph Ball mode, she is only 16 pixels tall, which means she crouches down into 25.6 inches of space, 0.65 meters. Being that the Morph Ball is, well, just that, a ball, we can easily calculate the volume with this. Plugging in the number shows us that her Morph Ball is a tightly packed 8,784 cubic inches, 0.14 cubic meters. Now by itself, that doesn't seem too impressive. Daniel Browning-Smith is the world record holder for the best contortionist. He earned the title when he fit himself into a box with a volume of 4,212 cubic inches, meaning less than half the size of the Morph Ball. Jeez! What's so morphy about it then? Fitting into this amount of space is not impressive really. Almost anyone can. What gives? Well, I'll tell you. Samus wears armor. Well, duh. I don't see how that matters. Ew! You get it, don't you? This amount of space isn't just for Samus. It's for Samus and her armor. Looking at this volume and claiming that that's the amount of space Samus has for her body is preposterous. Her armor is thick, inches thick, everywhere. And now remember, her shoulders are freaking generators. Look at how thick the armor is around this area, and the helmet is twice as wide as her head. This is where the Morph Ball actually utilizes that morph part of its name. The armor transforms and interlocks so that its outermost parts form a ball, but the inside is likely not so perfect. You can't transform a generator and have it still function as a generator. It has to look and work this way. Using these same measurements, her shoulders alone take up 1,098 cubic inches each. Then her head and helmet, which I sure hope isn't flexible, that'd be gross, takes up about 1,563 cubic inches. This means she now has to fit the rest of her body and all the additional armor in a space of 5,025 cubic inches, which is now a lot closer to the world record holder. Speaking of which, Daniel only stands at 5'8" and is likely around 150 pounds, not the 6'3" near 200 pounds of Samus. And she still has all that extra armor. Looking at it, parts of it are pretty tight, like at the joints, but other parts are multiple inches thick. Even just guessing that her armor is on average a mere 1.5 inches thick, guessing this number makes the math easy on ourselves since that's 1 pixel, would reduce the amount of space she has to fit herself by 2,414 cubic inches, meaning now, just her body from the neck down, has only 2,611 cubic inches to fit. In other words, the much larger body of Samus needs to fit into a space a little more than half of that as the most flexible human on Earth. Is that even possible? To answer that, I did some digging in the Googles and the Wolfram, and finally found a calculation that gives you an estimate of your volume. The first number is your weight in grams. If you don't know that off the top of your head, you can take your weight in pounds and multiply it by 453.6 to convert it. Using Samus's weight of 198 pounds gives us 89,812.8 grams. This is Samus's mass. The next step is incredibly easy. See, the human body has a density very similar to that of water, and since water is what we set the density standard as in the first place, we now divide your mass by 1. Easy enough, right? This new number in cubic centimeters is your volume. Converting cubic centimeters to inches tells us the truth. The fate at hand. Can Samus actually fit herself into that morph ball? 2,611 cubic inches? Heck no. She's 5,480 cubic inches. Even subtracting her head and helmet from that, like we did to get this number, still gives us about 3,917 cubic inches. And also remember, this is only assuming that her armor is 1.5 inches thick. Many parts of it are obviously a lot thicker, such as her back and bust armor. So even if Samus melted her body down into a mushy puddle of human goop, it would still be impossible for her to fit her body into that small amount of space, which I suppose makes some sense when we look at this. Samus is curling up as much as she can while doing a flip in the air. And here is the Morph Ball. It's a lot smaller. Her armor simply isn't flexible enough without using some sort of morphing technology that both changes its own properties and that of Samus as well. There is much more than meets the eye when it comes to this thing. The Transformers! So just how does it work, and how does it transform so quickly? And how does she control it? That's a question for next time on Noggin.